I have my pet set up now because I want to try playing Attack of the Petscii Robots. I bought this some time ago, but I haven't made the time to play it yet. And I also bought this Hyperkin Scout Super NES controller to use with Attack of the Petscii Robots. I want to play it on the Pet, since that was the original inspiration for creating the game. The box version of the game includes this Commodore user port to a Super NES adapter. And I bought this Hyperkin Scout specifically to try with Petscii Robots. I've never had a Super NES before, so I don't have any other controllers to compare this with, but we'll hopefully see if this works better for me than playing with the keyboard. I should be able to just plug the Super NES controller into the back here and then plug this into the Pet user port. There's also a sound output here that you can plug in a pair of powered speakers to. So I'll just plug this 3.5mm jack in here. I'll turn on the floppy drive and turn on the Pet. Side 1 of the disc is for the C64, and side 2 is for the VIC-20 and the Pet. So flip it over, put the disc in on side 2. So it's on the disc. Pet Robots. Turn the volume down on the sound there. Okay, let's select controls. Super NES gamepad. Difficulty. Easy, medium, hard. We'll start off with easy. And start the game. And the controller doesn't seem to be doing anything. It's a very nice manual included with the keyboard controls, and this diagram shows the Super NES controller. Movement, select, use, fire. But at the moment, the controller is not doing anything, and I think I know why. This adapter requires power. There's a jumper here on the back for the adapter to take 5 volts either from the user port or from an external source. Unfortunately, the Pet doesn't have 5 volts available on the user port. There's no power pins there at all. On the Commodore 64 and other 8-bit Commodores, pin 2 on the user port is 5 volts, but on the Pet, pin 2 is video. So I'm going to have to provide 5 volts for this from someplace else. So where's the easiest place to get 5 volts from on a Pet? Well, the cassette port. This is the power tap module from Jim Happel's Stupid Pet Tricks joystick adapter. And it's set up to provide 5 volts on this USB. I remove the jumper from the bottom here so the 5 volt rail isn't attached to pin 2. And then I soldered this micro USB connector, the ground and 5 volt pins, to ground and 5 volts on the adapter. And I can use the power tap to provide power right there. Connect it up again, plug in the power tap, plug in the USB. And don't forget the speaker connector. I've connected up my Petscii Plus in place of the disk drive to save wear and tear on the disk. And we'll try this one more time. Loads a little faster this way too. SNES pad, start game. And the controller works. What do you know? Forward, backwards, up, down. Fire buttons don't work because I don't have a weapon now. Nothing to move. There's a robot there. Looks like some bathrooms. Kitchen here with a robot. Let's see, I'm going to search. Found a med kit. Found a pistol. Okay, pressing A doesn't seem to fire in that direction. Pressing Y is firing in that direction. X fires the other direction. So Y and X are left and right. Oops. Shoulder button's firing up. But in the manual, it says the shoulder button is select search item or select L1. These are supposed to fire in all directions, but the A button's not doing anything. B fires down. X fires, so we got left, right, down, and up is here on the shoulder. And A is not doing anything. Now this might just be an incompatibility with this Hyperkin controller. I don't know. I don't have another NES controller to try. So clearly I need to improve my skills at the game, but I was a little confused by the controls. So I got out the Commodore 128 and I'm going to try the game on that. And I've replaced the jumper here to take 5 volts from pin 2 on the user port. Directional controls. Search. Can already tell the search and move shoulder buttons are much more responsive. Pistol. See how it behaves. Yeah, directional fire buttons definitely work better. So I'm guessing there must be something wrong with the controller on the Pet version of the game. So why does it work on the 128 and not on the Pet? Let's try powering the controller on the 128 the same way we do on the Pet. Five volts from the cassette port. Not that it should make any difference because it was getting 5 volts from the user port. Yeah, with the controller powered from the cassette port, all the buttons work fine on the 128. And I thought I'd better try it with a couple of my other pets just in case there's a problem with the user port on that 2001. So here's my 4032. X fires to the right. Nothing from A, and the shoulder button is firing up. So it doesn't look like it was just a quirk on that 2001. And this is my other Pet 2001, which is actually a Tine-Mouth Mini Pet on the inside. The controller seems to work fine on the Mini Pet. On the Mini Pet, the adapter seems to be working perfectly fine without external power, which doesn't make any sense because pin 2 is the video out signal on the Pet. So I'm not sure how it's giving it enough power to run. Dave Coran at Tine-Mouth Software wrote that he does not recommend running it this way. It doesn't make sense to power it from the video. So let's try powering it from the cassette port. So I have the jumper removed and I'm powering the adapter and controller from the cassette port. Let's see if it behaves the same on the Mini Pet as it does on a real pet. Okay, you can already tell that the shoulder button's not working very well. And A is not doing anything, X is firing the wrong direction. So we've got the same problem on the Mini Pet if we power it from the cassette port, but not if it's powered from pin 2. It doesn't make any sense. I put the jumper back on and I'm hooking up my multimeter here so that I can see what kind of voltage it's getting from pin 2. It's getting 4.4 volts from the video on pin 2 somehow. And now after being on for a second, the voltage is up to 5 volts. Running the game, once the port's initialized, the voltage drops to 4.3. And now I have the jumper removed and the 5 volts from the cassette port connected. I'm seeing about 1 volt with the computer turned off. Power on, we see 5 volts as we would expect. And when we run the game to initialize the port, we see the voltage drop to about 4.9. And we know in this configuration the controller doesn't work properly. And with the controller powered from the cassette port, I'm going to try this SNES test program. See what it does. So, left. It's measuring right and up at the same time. up, down, left, right. Select, start. Pressing X is registering A. Pressing Y is registering Y. Pressing A registers nothing. B is working. And the left shoulder button is registering as X. And I want to see what the voltages look like on the 128. So I'm going to hook up the multimeter here. .6 and 4.2 once the game starts. And again, with the power coming from the cassette port, 4.6 and staying at 4.6 once the game starts. So what's happening here? Why is it working when I power it from the user port and not when I power it from the cassette port? And I think I know why. It's not a software issue, and there's nothing wrong with this adapter. The fault is with this Hyperkin controller. The adapter has pretty much no active components on it all. There's one resistor here, this is CB2 for the sound. There's some capacitors here and a resistor pack, and there's this diode. So power comes in on the user port from pin 2 over here, and it goes through this diode before it hits this jumper and is jumpered over to here where it goes to power the controller. Now this diode is causing a slight voltage drop. All diodes have a forward bias voltage, and this diode has a 0.34 volt drop, which explains why I'm seeing 4.6 volts on the user port instead of 5. When the power comes through the user port, it goes through that diode, which drops the voltage to 4.6 volts. But when the power comes from the USB, it goes straight through, doesn't hit that diode, and the controller gets the full 5 volts. So maybe I have a defective one here, or maybe it's the Hyperkin design, but it doesn't like 5 volts. So I could just get rid of this Hyperkin controller and get one that works. Or what I think I'll do is add a diode here to drop the voltage down a bit. It seems to work at 4.5 volts, just not happy at 5. This silicon diode that I have in my parts bin has a forward bias of 0.6 volt, which is typical. That should drop the voltage down to 4.3 or so. So I added a diode in here from VCC to the 5 volt to the adapter. Hopefully this will resolve the problem. This should drop the voltage by 0.6 volts. Move the USB to the other side because it was getting in the way. There. Up, down, left, right. X, A, B, Y. Shoulder button feels responsive. Yeah, move button feels responsive. Up, down, left, right. There you have it. It's fixed. So this has been an interesting problem. You may or may not need that diode if you have a Hyperkin controller. If you have a different kind of controller, you probably won't need the diode. But in any case, it's recommended that you power your controller from some other source like the cassette port. It's not a good idea to power it from the video pin. So I guess I've got some playtime ahead of me now. Thanks for watching.